After a one-year gap, the latest generation Samsung smartwatch returns the classic moniker with the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. So, with this new smartwatch, the rotating bezel and the stainless steel build mark their returns, along with a 1mm increase in case sizes over the Watch 4 Classic. But the Watch 6 Classic is instead the upgrade to last year's Watch 5 Pro. Also, with Samsung deciding to sell the Watch 5 Pro side by side to the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic, who should buy the newer model? That's the main question. Also, if you already have a Watch 5 Pro or say even a Watch 4 Classic, should you even upgrade to the newer model? Let's find out. Hello everyone, I'm Ania for Fiber and this is my review of the Samsung Galaxy Watch 6 Classic in this striking silver colorway. But of course, before we get on with the rest of the review, consider hitting that red subscribe button for detailed tech videos and also turn on the bell so that you don't miss any of our latest updates. With that said, let's get started. Now, the Samsung Galaxy Watch 6 Classic retains the round aesthetic of traditional timepieces, and the 47mm variant that I've received for testing looks absolutely classy. Now, compared to the Watch 5 Pro, the Watch 6 Classic features a smaller battery, something I will talk about in a bit, but despite that, the Watch 6 Classic is actually a hair thicker and about 13 grams heavier than the Watch 5 Pro. Of course, the increase in weight has to do with the stainless steel build versus the titanium build on the Watch 5 Pro, which by the way is lighter and more resistant. Nevertheless, after using the Watch 6 Classic for like day in and day out, yes, I do feel the heft, but then I also got used to it quite easily. Okay, now let's talk about the rotating bezel, which I know has returned, and I've heard from many that how aesthetic it looks, how nice it looks, how good it feels, while rotating this bezel. But practically also I think this one makes a lot of sense. So of course, fidgeting with it is fun, and there's this audible click also that sounds so satisfying whenever you rotate it. However, the most important thing that the rotating bezel does is how accurate the rotations, how accurate landing on an action feels versus the touch bezel on the Watch 5 Pro, which I often found quite inconsistent. Other than this, the two buttons that were also there on the Watch 5 Pro are again here. This button at the top takes you home from like any screen, and long pressing this bottom button triggers the Samsung Wallet. Now, the raised bezel also does a fine job of protecting the watch face, which by the way is protected by sapphire glass. Finally, there's a high quality rubber material wristband that gives you the leather feels. The best part that unlike previous generations, you simply press a button and the wristband immediately pops out. And since the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic supports the 20mm watch band standard, there are quite a lot of choices when it comes to first party options as well as third party options, so that's good. Okay, the display now. So the Watch 6 Classic comes in two variants of 43mm and 47mm, having 1.3 inches and 1.5 inches large Super AMOLED displays on board. I have the larger variant, as I've already told you, and the display here is top notch. It is sharp, it is vibrant, but most importantly, it is brighter than ever and probably the brightest on any smartwatch right now. So Samsung claims that the Watch 6 Classic can hit peak brightness of up to 2000 nits. Now, this is double than what Apple claims for the Watch Ultra, that is 1000 nits. Now, I've used a bunch of smartwatches in my tenure as a reviewer. I have the Watch 4, Samsung Watch 4. I have the Apple Watch Series 7. I've also used the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. And after having used all of those smartwatches, and now that I'm using this one, I can easily say that this is the brightest smartwatch that I've ever used, period. However, do you remember that I mentioned that this Watch 6 Classic has a smaller battery, and pair the smaller battery with a now faster and efficient processor, and while yes, it is claimed to be efficient, I think the performance is top tier on the Watch 6 Classic, but it comes at the cost of battery life. For perspective, the Watch 6 Classic has a 425 mAh battery versus a 590 mAh battery inside the Watch 5 Pro. This is paired with an efficient dual-core 1.4 GHz Exynos 930 SoC. There's 16 GB storage on board and larger 2 GB RAM. So with this hardware, the Watch 6 Classic is fast and snappy in day-to-day operations. However, the battery life is not as good as the Watch 5 Pro. Now, I'm not saying that the battery life is bad on the Watch 6 Classic. Instead, with an always-on display and adaptive brightness turned on, Samsung claims 30 hours of battery life, and in my testing, I was consistently hitting 25 to 30 hours of battery life on my Watch 6 Classic. And this is with all the health sensors turned on, always on display enabled and adaptive brightness enabled. And let me also tell you that before plugging the watch into the charger, I always had about 10 to 15% of battery left. So depending on my usage, you never know. If I had gone for say 100 to 0% battery drain, then the Watch 6 Classic might have also hit the magic number that Samsung is claiming. As for charging times, a 15% to 100% charge using a PD charger took about 80 minutes, which is quite decent in the smartwatch world and definitely faster than the likes of the Watch 5 Pro or even the Apple Watch Ultra. On the software front, there's One UI 5.0 for the watch atop Wear OS 4, which also makes it the first Android smartwatch in the world with the latest Watch OS release ahead of the Pixel Watch. That said, Wear OS 4 on the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic is more about refinement, and anyone who has used Wear OS 3.5 on previous generation smartwatches should definitely feel right at home. Although a couple of differences that I did notice on the newer build was the Samsung Wallet integration, which now lets you tap and pay with your watch. One other thing that I noticed is that on top of 100 different available workouts, you can now set a custom workout and you can also record those custom workout routines. So I'm sure fitness enthusiasts are surely going to appreciate this. Apart from this, fitness tracking is right on the money, and features such as step tracking, heart rate monitoring and blood oxygen monitoring are quite accurate and right in line with the Watch 5 Pro. And also to inform you that just like the Watch 5 Pro, the Watch 6 Classic can also do blood pressure monitoring and ECG monitoring, but the features are not currently available for the Indian market. Now, I've reached out to Samsung for the same and I'm waiting for an update. Whenever I receive it, I will definitely pin it in the comments below. However, what works incredibly well is sleep tracking. It is brilliant and accurate and gives you quite a lot of insights, including your snoring data. Finally, the general performance of the Watch 6 Classic has been snappy, app opening times are fast and touch and taps are quite responsive. To control the watch with your phone, there's the Galaxy Wear app. I paired it with my Fold 5, and with the app you get all the granular controls such as setting up watch faces, the app screen, widgets or the watch settings. In fact, since my watch is LTE, oftentimes at night I left my phone at home and would go out to meet someone. In one instance, I even went out for a late night movie and I left my phone at home. I only had my Watch 6 Classic, and you know, that is the luxury that a cellular watch brings to the table over a usual Bluetooth smartwatch. Also, while the Watch 6 Classic uses a faster processor than the Watch 5 Pro, in the real world, I didn't see any noticeable performance jumps on the Watch 6 Classic over the Watch 5 Pro. However, the rotating bezel does add that extra bit of practicality and speed in day-to-day usage. Long story short, the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic and the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro are more or less the same smartwatches, with the Classic having the advantage of the physical rotating bezel and the Pro having the advantage of the longer battery life. Now, first up, if you already have the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, then I would not suggest you that you go for the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic unless and until you really want this physical rotating bezel, because while the Watch 5 Pro misses out on the physical rotating bezel, it does give you the advantage of superb battery life and somewhat better durability, because titanium is a slightly superior material than steel. However, when it comes to buying a new Android smartwatch and your choices are narrowed down between the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro and the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic, in that case, I would recommend that you go for the Watch 6 Classic, and my reasons are as follows. So first up, the choices. The Watch 6 Classic is available in 43mm and 47mm options. So depending on your preference, you can go for whichever size you prefer. Although I would suggest that the size difference between the 43mm variant and the 47mm variant isn't all that much. So for the better battery life, I would say that you go for the 47mm variant if you're buying the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. Now once the size thing is sorted, the 47mm variant of the Watch 6 Classic is bigger, brighter, and even the LTE version is cheaper by 1000 rupees than the Bluetooth version of the Watch 5 Pro. Next up, the rotating bezel is practical both in terms of function as well as style. And speaking of style, it is a subjective take, but the silver color of the Watch 6 Classic is a looker, and the Watch 5 Pro does not come anywhere close to it, and I'm sure many people would resonate with me on this. All in all, the Watch 6 Classic is refined, brings back the classic rotating bezel, looks good, is priced really well, and depending on your mileage, it should be able to give you 1 to 1.5 days of battery life with ease. That said, if you're a pro-grade fitness enthusiast and say a 2 days battery life is something that really matters to you with your smartwatch, then you'd be better off with the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. Either way, that's been my review of the Samsung Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. Fiber rates it a solid 8.5 on 10. But you guys also let me know your thoughts about this watch in the comments below. As always, I'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you for watching.